Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Where does Joseph Parker go next? He's just had a tune-up fight. He sparked out Alexander Flores in 3 rounds. It was a result that was expected. It was a glorified cherry pick to end 2018 with a win, get some confidence, return to the winner's circle, reset in his rebuild and look to 2019. In 2019, does he return to the lucrative UK market? He's fought there 3 times in the past 18 months, Hughie Fury, Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte. He's made a boatload of money, but he came away with 2 losses also. Does he go back there? Lucas Browne, that's an option. That could be a pay-per-view event in New Zealand and Australia. A very decent trans-Tasman rivalry sort of event. So that is an option, and that fight was almost made back in 2017. They were looking to make that fight. Lucas Browne even signed his end of the contract. Parker held off while Anthony Joshua negotiations were ongoing. Ultimately, they did make the Joshua fight. And obviously Parker lost his WBO strap in that fight. And also, Junior Fa, a potential domestic fight, a domestic rivalry, that has been something that's been bubbling along since the amateur days. They fought 4 times in the amateurs. Fa won 2, Parker won 2. There will be a point where it comes, time for a dead rubber match. And actually, maybe we'll start there first. Because Fa, after his win over Rogelio Omar Rossi, which was on the Parker undercard, he said, I'm ready for Parker anywhere, anytime. I want that fight. And Joseph Parker, he's spoken about wanting that fight too, but it's probably not the right time right now because money seems to be a big consideration. The fight Flores was in with Parker, that was actually offered to Fa. They turned it down. They wanted too much. They wanted $500,000 to fight Joseph Parker. My view, that's overestimating Junior Fa's worth at this point in his career. But if he gets a couple of good contender level wins, he can build towards that fight. But if they take the fight now, they'd have to take it on shorter money. They could get it made if they want it. Junior Fa says he wants to fight Parker, but obviously money seems to be a stumbling block right now. I think many would regard Parker as a hot favourite in that fight because Junior Fa is still a bit of an unknown quantity in some respects. He had a bit of a down year in 2018, some health issues, but he seems to be turning that around. He looked good against Rossi, but Rossi was a journeyman. He should look good against him, stopped him in half a round. He would actually have to get a couple of more decent wins under his record, recognised names. But Kevin Barry has basically said in the post-fight press conference, look, all this Junior Fa talk, it's got to stop. The guy needs to fight some live bodies, he needs to fight some guys in the world's top 200, and he needs to actually do something to earn the fight with Parker. And he did lament the fact that it was offered to Fa, but he didn't take it. So for now, he says, no more talk of it. In terms of Lucas Browne, as I noted earlier, he almost fought Joseph Parker in 2017. They were lining that fight up, but ultimately the Joshua fight took over the negotiations and the rest is history. In terms of Joseph Parker's rebuild, coming from this Flores fight, I could actually see a Lucas Browne fight being a decent sort of fight. A bit of a step up, but also a fight in which Parker could look really good in. He would make Lucas Browne look like he was walking in mud. Browne, very slow, very plodding. As I've said previously, I believe he's a knockout waiting to happen. And that's probably why Lucas Browne has blocked me on social media, because I have said that a number of times. But in terms of Joseph Parker's rebuild, if they're looking to just work him back up, I think Lucas Browne potentially is a very good fight for him. I think Joseph Parker could look really good in that and potentially get a stunning knockout, similar to the one Dillian Whyte got in March of this year. But Browne, he seems to be a bit all over the place, but he's in the twilight of his career now. He seems to be eyeing Dave Allen potentially for next year sometime. He's talked about Adam Kanowski. He's talked about some other names publicly. He's mentioned Marius Wok as an option. He's also mentioned Arnold Jerichai as an option. So there's a couple of names, but really I think for Browne, some of it could be posturing. What it'll really come down to is a payday. Lucas Browne has said he's not gotten rich from the sport, and a potential pay-per-view with Parker, which would be pay-per-view in New Zealand and Australia, that may be the most lucrative option out there for Lucas Browne, who, as I mentioned, coming to the back end of his career. He's almost 40. He looks to be potentially slowing down, lost a step from what he once was. He was never any great shakes in terms of his boxing, but he's always had power. And there was an interesting clip that popped up online of him basically saying, I'm not the greatest boxer. I only need 10 seconds. It can be the 11th round. If I've got 10 seconds and I buzz you, I can take you out. So Lucas Browne, heavy-handed, he's got power, but I think Joseph Parker, with his skills, his movement, his speed, also he's got a pretty decent chin. I think he would be able to weather any storm from Lucas Browne, and I think he would knock him out in devastating fashion, probably retire him. So there's a lot of risk there for Lucas Browne, but potentially the reward could be there, and it represents a step up of sorts from Alexander Flores. But you'd hope, if they did make that fight, potentially, February or March of 2018, that Parker would be on to bigger and better things after that, because he would win. I have no doubt that Joseph Parker would beat Lucas Browne at this point in Browne's career, and it would be a cash-out fight of sorts for Browne. And I guess the next options, the UK. A return to the UK, but what does that mean, and who does it mean? There could be several potential options. And in the most recent comment section, a number of names have been mentioned. There is the likes of Joe Joyce, his name has been thrown up. Luis Ortiz, you've got Jarrell Miller, his name has been thrown up. You've had Dillian Whyte, a rematch, and that is certainly something that Kevin Barry, Parker's trainer, he wants. They want to work towards that rematch. I can't see that fight happening, until Dillian Whyte has had a title shot. There is other guys that are out there. If Whyte gets past Chisora could be an option. Alexander Usyk, he potentially will be fighting in the UK next year sometime, April or May. There has been talk about Parker being a potential opponent for Usyk, but that seems unlikely because David Higgins, Parker's promoter, says, nah, that's not going to happen. Derek Chisora, you could see that as a potential comeback fight to the UK for Joseph Parker. There could also be the likes of Dave Allen, maybe even David Price. The fact that David Price is fighting Tom Little on December 22nd, that tells me that they're saving David Price to be fed to someone in 2018. Is that Joseph Parker, or is that someone else? Is that an Alexander Usyk type? But Parker, if we look at the list of names, there's a few guys. So what do we got? Whyte feels unlikely. Chisora, potentially. David Price, potentially. Dave Allen, potentially. Who else have we got there? Joe Joyce, potentially. Maybe a Carlos Takam rematch. That could be interesting. They fought in 2016. Joseph Parker got a close decision. That was in New Zealand. But if you were to have that in the UK, could be on a big card as part, chief support type fight. It'd be a very interesting to run that one back. And I think Parker, who probably has been improving since 2016 when he was a fringe contender when they fought, whereas Takam potentially on the slide now. So, Joseph Parker could look to tidy up that close result, get a win over Takam. Another name that's been mentioned is Alexander Povetkin. And certainly Povetkin looks to be fighting on the Joshua undercard in April. Parker and Povetkin. Now that would be an interesting fight. I think a lot of people would have Alexander Povetkin as the favourite, but Joseph Parker got a very decent chin, very good boxing skills, moves well, but is he a bit too hittable? Would Alexander Povetkin be able to take advantage of Parker's defensive flaws? I think it'd be interesting to see. Maybe Alexander Povetkin is at the point in his career where Joseph Parker might be able to take advantage of him. Another name that keeps cropping up is Luis Ortiz. I'm not sure that fight happens just yet. Potentially it could happen in the United States, but I'm not sure that they're looking at the United States right now. Kevin Barry has mentioned Lucas Browne, the UK, and obviously Junior Fire has been mentioned as well. So tell me, who do you think that Joseph Parker should fight next? Interested in your view on that one. And I did go to Duco to try and get a couple of follow-up questions answered regarding Parker's fight with Flores. I was interested in a couple of different things, the pay-per-view, how many people were at the venue and such, but also to get a couple of comments about the what next. And in terms of the financials, I couldn't get an answer. They were never going to give me that, but it was worth asking just for a crack. But they did give me a comment saying the main goal of the promotion was for Joseph to make a statement to the heavyweight division that he will be a force in 2019. And we certainly achieved that. And to end what has been a huge and challenging year on a high. And he certainly achieved that in style. And as for the what next, it goes on. Kevin Barry is on the record at the press conferences saying we could look at Lucas Browne early next year or return to the UK, and that Joe is very keen for a rematch with Dillian Whyte. And as for a Parker and Farr fight, it will never happen unless Farr steps up and starts fighting live bodies. So the challenge is there for Junior Farr. Either take less money or fight some live bodies to earn the fight with Parker for better money. What do you make of it all? Where do you see Parker going next? 2019 could go one of two ways. Parker could end up treading water, or it could be a bit of a resurrection year. He could end up being a bit of a phoenix and be in the conversation for another title shot by the end of it. Can he get back to a title shot, to a title challenge? Can he get himself in position? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.